I suspect we're going to see a massive economic crisis during his administration, and not his fault. I think the fake media will try to blame him, but these are structural things that have been going on for generations, and I think a lot of it's going to come to a head during his administration, and how he responds to that is going to be critical in whether our country survives as a free, prosperous, market-minded nation, or whether we go down the road of so many other nations before us that fell into tyranny and despotism.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for January 20th through January 27th, 2025, while supplies last. This week we feature the 1-ounce Canadian Silver Falcon coin at just $2.75 over spot, the lowest price we've had on any sovereign coin in years. We also have 90% constitutional silver or junk silver at just $1.69 over spot per ounce. We also have the 1/10 ounce UK Gold Britannia coin at just $29.99 over melt. And finally, 1-ounce gold Canadian maples are just $59 over spot. Again, one of the lowest prices we've had on gold sovereign coins in years. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always glad to have this returning guest, Alex Newman, a contributor at the Epoch Times and also from the New American and Liberty Sentinel, joins us here again on Liberty and Finance. Today is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. Alex, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me, Dunnigan.
We wanted to have you back on just on the heels of the Trump inauguration because there are so many stories that are flying. I would call it the good, the bad, and the ugly of actions that Trump is either taking or promising to take, or seem to be getting pushed around into by those surrounding him. We'll see. But if we could do maybe a quick hit list of the things that you think are worth celebrating, that we're seeing happen, things that are too early to tell, and things that are distinctly concerning. Maybe we'll take them in that order. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. First of all, what good are you seeing that looks like, oh my gosh, it's been too long. Glad to see that happening coming from the Trump administration, either actions they've already taken or ones they're promising about to take.
Well, thank you, Dunnigan. There would be not nearly enough time to go through all the good things that have happened just in the last few days. It has been an incredible whirlwind. Some of the ones that I thought were especially important, getting out of the climate scam. You know, I actually read through the executive order yesterday. It's much bigger and much better than the first time around. First of all, they're not playing along with this fraud that we need to wait 4 years and give advance notice. It's just we're out immediately. That's it. No more discussion. Goes on to say, and I'm on a thread right now with a bunch of lawyers and climate people, a lot of people who worked at DOJ, worked with Donald Trump on this issue, because it says anything that was entered into under the UNFCCC, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, is also going to be terminated. Now, we are trying to figure out right now, does that mean that we're out of the UNFCCC? Do we need Senate ratification to get out of that? Because that's actually the underlying treaty upon which the whole global climate sham is based, including Paris. So waiting for more on that, but really, really good news. Getting out of what I call the World Homicide Organization. This is a huge win. Trump portrayed it a lot as just a bad financial deal. $500 million in the big scheme of things of a multi-trillion-dollar federal budget is nothing. I mean, you could burn that in the backyard, nobody'd even notice. The real danger from the WHO is that it is trying to usurp national sovereignty, usurp individual autonomy, and of course it is in the hands of dangerous megalomaniacs and totalitarians, very much including the Chinese Communist Party, mass murderers. So huge, huge win. The rollback of the DEI, the pardons of the mostly peaceful January 6th protesters, the freezing of federal hiring, the freezing of new regulations. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just so important and so good. I'm hoping that we'll see something more sustainable, because we all know there's going to be an election in 4 years and another 4 years after that. And so we want to try to institutionalize these things so that the next president can't just come in with another pen and overturn everything that Trump has done here. But those are some things that are really, really encouraging. There's quite a few things that we're going to have to wait and see on. And then there's some things that I think are very troubling that I think we should all have our eye on. One of the ones that I've been paying attention to even before the inauguration was this focus on North America, this joke, if you will, that we ought to bring in Canada as the 51st state. Not funny. Not funny at all. The globalists, the technocrats have had a vision for a united North America along the lines of the European Union for a very long time. We've got official U.S. government documents that were talking about a North American parliament, a North American currency. How do we undermine sovereignty? How do we bypass the constitutions of the governments? Terrible, terrible idea. It's part of the globalist plan to undermine national sovereignty and divide the world up into regional governments. You got Putin building the Eurasian Union, the Africans having an African Union imposed upon them as we speak. South America's got the Union of South American States, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. I mean, these are popping up all over the world. And North America is probably going to be one of the toughest nuts to crack. But as Klaus Schwab said in his book on the Great Reset, we need more integration in North America. And unfortunately, during Trump's first term, we saw one of the greatest leaps forward on this front that we had seen since the passage of NAFTA with the USMCA. We had a deep state globalist insider infiltrate the Trump administration, Robert Lighthizer from the Council on Foreign Relations, and tell Trump that this was going to be a great, wonderful deal for American business, and it was going to restore common sense to our trade agreements with two of our biggest trading partners. And unfortunately, Trump seems to have bought the rhetoric. I was actually asked by one of his top advisors to put together a memo on this, and I explained to the president what was going to happen. It was going to expand the jurisdiction of these illegitimate North American tribunals and bureaucracies over vastly more areas of law and policy. So I outlined all this. I'm told he read it. Obviously, he didn't pay any attention to it. But this is really, really problematic. And now they seem to be doubling down on this. And we're talking about incorporating Greenland and all the way down to the Panama Canal. Very coincidentally, I'm sure, the exact model that the technocrat advocates of a North American technate had back in the 1930s at Columbia University, picked up eventually by people like Zbigniew Brzezinski, co-founder of the Trilateral Commission with David Rockefeller. So these things are not new. I don't suspect that Donald Trump understands fully what's going on here, but strikes me as a very, very dangerous idea, and I hope somebody with a little common sense will tamp down all of this right now. And another big one, and you and I talked about it a little bit right before we went on, this whole Stargate AI thing run by a bunch of totalitarian technocrats. They're talking about developing new mRNA injections within 48 hours that are going to be personalized for you. Frankly, no, I mean, absolutely, positively not. I wouldn't touch one of those things with a 1,000-foot pole. And I would have liked to have thought that after Operation Warp Speed, we would all exercise some really serious caution here. So I thought that was a little disheartening. And you look at some of the people that he brought out, like Larry Ellison of Oracle, and we talked about this a little bit as well. This is the guy who just a few months ago was out there talking about how everybody's going to be constantly surveilled, and so everyone's going to have to behave themselves. We don't want a police state, right? And so there's a few things that the evil-doing globalists are going to really push hard for during the next 4 years, and they're going to try to package it in conservative packaging. Digital IDs, digital biometric IDs are going to be one of the big ones. And they're not going to say, hey guys, we want to babysit you like you're all a bunch of little pathetic children because we're big time liberals. No. They're going to say, we got to stop the mass illegal immigration. We've got to stop the terrorism. We've got to stop the voter fraud, right? This is going to be packaged in terms that'll be palatable for Trump and MAGA and everyday Americans who are sick of this stuff. And so that's one of their huge goals. Watch for this. And we're already starting to see some of this coming in conservative states, incidentally. A whole bunch of Republican states now passing laws that, you can't go on the porn website unless you upload your ID or whatever. And first of all, don't be going to porn sites. Okay. Second of all, don't be uploading your ID into these systems. And they're doing the same thing with the kids. Oh, the kids are doing dumb stuff on social media, so we need parents to upload their ID to make sure they give permission for their children to be using these social media. Parents, just be parents. I don't want my kids doing the dumb social media stuff either. It's a simple solution. Take away the devices from them. Don't let them go into their room with a computer or an iPad, and be a parent. You don't need Big Daddy government to do these things for you. So let's not fall for conservative marketing slogans aimed at selling us totalitarian ideas.
That's one of the ones that's gravely concerning as well to me, is this idea of Basically, it's right out of the book 1984, the Big Brother constant surveillance that Larry Ellison is pitching. And you're right, it's being packaged as a solution to unwanted illegal immigration. So if you look at the broader view over the past 12 years, 8 of those 12 years, we had basically an open border on the southern border of the U.S. and those at the helm saying, not a problem, not going to go visit that, not going to talk about it, just going to laugh it off. Uncontrolled flow of people in there until the citizens of the United States got up in arms and said, enough is enough. We won't tolerate this anymore. And now being proposed as a solution. Oh, well, if you're insisting that we have complete surveillance and facial recognition and AI deciding who the good guys and the bad guys are, who belongs here and who doesn't, okay, we'll put that system in since you're asking for it. And it seems that this playbook of allow unthinkable departures from normal constitutional ways of managing your country to persist until it becomes intolerable. And then when a crisis finally erupts, go ahead and say, oh, well, then we'll provide you with a solution. And the solution is as bad as the original problem that was injected. Any further thoughts about what people can do on a local or statewide basis at wherever the right place is to push back against this surveillance state?
Well, it begins with the individual. Don't willingly participate in this stuff. Don't give them your data. Don't upload your ID. Don't get a digital ID. Don't cooperate with these big tech companies. Don't use Google when you're doing searches. If you have to use Google, don't give them any of your personal information. And I mean, so it just begins with us as individuals. And I would also say that state governments have a major role to play here in pushing back on some of this. I mean, that's not just my opinion. If you go back to our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, James Madison, the primary author of the U.S. Constitution, both said that the rightful remedy for unconstitutional usurpations of power by the federal government was to have state governments interpose or nullify bad federal policy. And we've had a lot of state governments doing that. The Democrats have actually become masters at this, right? There's all over this country. People are smoking marijuana in blatant defiance of unconstitutional federal statutes in that respect. For many years, dozens of states resisted the real ID mandates from the federal government that they bring their ID system into compliance with this federal ID regime. So we can do this. We must do this. We should have been doing it more during Joe Biden's administration. Shut down your power plants. No, kick rocks. We're not shutting down our power plants. Register, all this stuff, free speech, censorship, all of this stuff should have been resisted by state governments. And when it comes to the surveillance and all these other things, states should start working right now on, and not just with Donald Trump in mind. Donald Trump will be there, for fortunate, maybe 4 more years. But what comes next, right? We need measures in place at the state, at the county, and at the local level protecting our rights as citizens. In fact, just 2 days ago, I got a call from a bunch of county commissioners in a major county here in Florida asking me about how to do a county sanctuary Bill of Rights bill. And, these guys are all pro-Trump. They're all Republican, but they recognize that even if Trump is everything that we all hope he will be, in 4 years, we have another election. We've got a Congress that's totally out of control. We've got federal judges that are totally out of control. So we have got to put these protections in place at every level, but really it begins with the individual.
One more thing that didn't make our list yet, but I think should, is our money. Trump has gone a long way in the past about talking. First, he talked about in his last term, talking about a strong dollar. Then he said, actually, we need to have lower interest rates and negative interest rates and a weaker dollar. And now he's talked in between the two terms about gold being important in the strength of a country's currency. And that seems to have taken a back seat. We're going to be interviewing Dr. Judy Shelton, who wrote the book Good as Gold, about that topic. But now he seems to be, together with RFK Jr., quite enamored with cryptocurrencies, and both terms seem to be surrounding himself with Wall Street type bankers. So it's a little bit tricky to know where you see Trump falling on the future of our financial lives and our monetary lives. Any observations from you, anything that you've picked up there, and anything that you think people need to do, again, if necessary, at the local level? And I've got a few more tidbits to add to that after you're done.
Well, I have it on pretty good authority that Trump understands the corrupt monetary system much better than he publicly lets on. He's dropped a few hints here and there about, wouldn't it be nice if we had a dollar backed by gold? And then in nominating Judy Shelton to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. I mean, these are indications that there's something major going on here. I would argue that this is one of the most important issues. If he really wants to deal a death blow to the deep state, there's a handful of places where that could be done, and this is one of the most important. We've got a corrupt private cartel of banks masquerading as a federal agency, creating currency out of thin air, loaning it to us at interest without ever creating the interest so that we can never pay back. I mean, it is one of the biggest scams that humanity has ever seen. And we act like it's just a matter of policy preference. It's not. It's a fraud of unbelievable proportions. And I do believe that Trump understands this better than almost anyone outside of, wonky people like us who really study this. So I'm hopeful that we'll see some positive action on this. I know he also has not been very critical of huge government. Nobody's going to accuse Donald Trump of being a deficit hawk or, budget hawk. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to mind the spending as much as I think he should. But we have seen some really encouraging signs, and I know he has a desire to try to tackle this. Let's hope that he does, and let's encourage him to do that. The louder we get on these issues, the more likely we are to see real action. And frankly, Duncan, I suspect we're going to see a massive economic crisis during his administration, and not his fault. I think the fake media will try to blame him, but these are structural things that have been going on for generations. And I think a lot of it's going to come to a head during his administration, and how he responds to that is going to be critical in whether our country survives as a free, prosperous, market-minded nation, or whether we go down the road of so many other nations before us that fell into tyranny and despotism.
One promising note is at the state level, there are a number of states. It was 14, now it's more like 20. If people want to go to soundmoney.org, and also the Missouri Freedom Initiative also has some tabulations on this, but there is a growing number of states that are not just doing things that are necessary, like removing sales tax from gold and silver coinage, or declaring that gold and silver are legal tender and they can be paid, taxes can be paid in their state with that, and establishing state depositories, some states and others. But one key thing that just came out in an interview that I did with the CEO of GlintPay is that the transactional nature, really enabling the transaction ability of precious metals on an instantaneous basis, can be an end run around the heinous capital gains tax that the IRS currently has levied on precious metals. If right now, if you enjoy a nominal gain, which is ridiculous to say enjoy, if they successfully by policy destroy the value of your dollar sufficiently that everything you own that's real can now be claimed to be worth more, and now the government wants a cut of that fictitious more that they created with their destroying of your dollar. This ability to prove that gold and silver can be used for transactions, and it's not an asset that's like a collectible, but it is in fact money, then it should not be subject to capital gains tax, is actually making a foothold in some states. And we're going to be talking more about that the next week or so. But I don't know if you have any more thoughts about this consortium of states that are really pushing together and helping each other to draft legislation, et cetera, and how we as ordinary people can encourage/insist that our representatives make moves on that against federal overreach with our money.
It's interesting you ask about that now, Doug. I'm working on a big article about that right now for the Epic Times. I've communicated with a lot of the people involved in this. Representative Mark DeRazio has got a great bill over in Texas to actually institute the first state transactional gold system. They've already got the Texas Bullion Depository. It's doing great work. Now they want to create a system where consumers, merchants can actually exchange and do commerce with this system. So really, really exciting things happening there. I spoke with Marlo Oaks several times now, treasurer of Utah, who seems to be an enthusiastic supporter. He put together a working group last year to study this very issue. You've got Kevin Freeman down in Texas with pirate money leading the charge, and states all over the country are now introducing bills on this. I just spoke with my friend Senator Bob Ide up in Wyoming. He just introduced a bill to have the state keep part of its reserves in gold. So there are so many things happening on this front. I would really encourage people to get to know their state legislators, their representatives, their senators, get on the phone with them, get a meeting with them, and tell them that this is absolutely critical. This is kind of an emergency escape, if nothing else. If the federal system comes crashing down with the Federal Reserve and the dollar and all the rest of it, this is at least a backup where we wouldn't have to, say, get sucked into a CBDC system, et cetera. So really, folks, pay attention to this. Again, I'll have a big article about it out very soon, but I hope people are paying attention. This is a huge, huge deal.
Two more aspects, and these are connected in my mind, and I think in yours as well, and that is education and faith. We've had great hope that Trump's entry back into the presidential office and the policies that he might enact might roll back some of the encroachments on the rights of the family to be the primary educators of their children, and also on faith-based organizations, basically people who want to put God first in their lives and subordinate their lives to living out biblically valid lives. We're really under attack very aggressively over the last several years, even as much as forced shutdowns of worships during the COVID era, et cetera, et cetera. So your thoughts on those two aspects, education and faith, coming out of what we're seeing so far, or what we anticipate from the administration?
Well, I'm really encouraged to see Trump still talking about the education issue, because in my opinion, it is the single most important issue. All these other things we're talking about mean nothing if they brainwash all our kids. They just say it bluntly. Even if you hold back the tyrants for another 4, 10, 20, 50 years, if they brainwash all our kids, we lose. It's over, right? We might as well just surrender now. We must deal with this. And so even in his inauguration speech, Trump was talking about how our children are being indoctrinated to hate their country, to hate their family, to believe they were born in the wrong body. I mean, it's just totally, totally ludicrous. And step one is having people recognize we have a problem. And unfortunately, as a country, we're still at step one. You've got over 80% of American parents still sending their children into these indoctrination camps. So step one is we've got to raise awareness about how significant the danger is and how significant it is that we deal with this problem. There are efforts, of course, to shut down the Department of Education. The D.C. Rhino Swamp is already, don't throw me in the briar patch. They've got a fake bill by Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota. I've never met the guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but this bill would not shut down the Department of Education in any real sense. Yeah, the building would close, but if you read the bill, it just redistributes the functions. You send this to State Department, this to Treasury, this to Indian Affairs, this to Health and Human Services. So it just redistributes all these functions to other agencies. That is not progress at all. It just makes it harder to track the evil coming out of D.C., but the bureaucracy, the system remains intact. So we've got to deal with this. We absolutely do. And what I would encourage parents to do is separate yourselves entirely from this system. There's a lot of great options out there. Homeschooling is fantastic. I've got my kids enrolled in Classical Conversations. I serve as a senior fellow there. It's the nation's largest homeschool group, 125,000 families, communities all over the country. It's a great alternative. Freedom Project Academy, online K-12 school for people who really want like the full school experience without the government involved. Great option. There's a lot of really good options, Dunnigan. And this issue is way too important, right? It is, I think, the single most powerful thing that a parent can do for his children, for his country, for his community, for his liberty, is get your children out of the system and make sure they get a good, real, legitimate education. So kudos to Trump for addressing this. Don't expect Trump to be a savior on this or any other issue. Best case scenario, he's a great statesman and wakes people up and makes a little bit of progress on policy. But ultimately, this comes down to moms and dads doing the right thing and educating their children with real academics and centered on their faith tradition.
And that brings us back to faith. Any progress that you're hoping for from this administration or the people, we the people, in the face of this opportunity to take back and to recenter our lives on faith and handing down our faith to our children?
Yeah, I think it's so important, Dunnigan, and people get uncomfortable when you talk about this, but John Adams, very, very important founding father, he said our Constitution is only fit for a moral and religious people. If we don't go back to our roots, to our heritage, there's no way to preserve liberty. Liberty has never truly existed independent of Christianity and the Bible. It's not even possible, in my opinion. So if you look at what produced the greatest freest nation in the history of the world, the Bible is right at the center of it. And the U.S. Congress recognized this as recently as 1983, right? Go read the declaration on the Bible that the Congress passed with support from Republicans and Democrats, signed by Ronald Reagan. The Bible is the central element of what created the United States in biblical thinking. So I'm encouraged to see Donald Trump talking about some of this. I'm encouraged to see him talking about how God spared his life. That's what we really need, is a renewed sense of humility, a renewed sense of, we are not the center of the universe. And I don't think without that we can really turn back. So I was encouraged to see some of Trump's executive orders trying to ease up on the censorship, the persecution of religious folks. I know Kash Patel is going to do a great job at the FBI reining in some of this nasty abuse, sending in secret agents into Catholic churches like this is some kind of Gestapo or something. So I'm encouraged by what we're seeing. But this ultimately is again, it boils down to the individual, right? Where are you at in your walk with God? And it's something that we all need to work on.
Well, I want to iterate here for those at Liberty and Finance that for me and my house, we put Jesus Christ at the head of our house, and Almighty God is the ruler of our home. And we always, even in our family meetings, and we homeschooled our children, had weekly family meetings. In every family meeting, whenever there was contention about why is that a family ruler, we didn't necessarily defend the family rule. We said, well, let's examine that, because if the family rules aren't in line with God's teachings, then we need to change them. And if they are in line with God's teachings, then we need to abide by them. So that was always the sounding board that we went back to. And that's been reminded to us again and again throughout life, is that we must turn our lives over, consecrate ourselves individually and as a family, and here as a channel. So thank you always for reminding us of the central place of faith in your life, and how you see that being a pivotal thing for our country's thriving and prosperity going forward. That's something we all need to remember. So folks, don't hesitate to forward this to those you love who are in the shared economic or educational or faith-based or community. We need to gather together and help each other, and to basically overcome a lot of the crazy thinking that's persisted in the last decade or two or three, and take back what is true and right and beautiful. And that means protecting our faith, protecting our families, protecting our children. Alex, you're a big part of that. That's what you do basically all day, every day. So if people want to follow your work, how should they follow you on a more frequent basis than your visits here?
Well, thank you again, Duncan. I agree with every word you said. It's so important, and I hope people will go back and rewatch that segment. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's just brilliant. People can follow me at libertysentinel.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. It's free. We send it out twice a week. And then also I'm on X, AlexNewman_JOU. Of course, I'm senior editor at the New American Magazine. People can go to thenewamerican.com and a lot of other places, but that's that's a good starting point. And of course, I'm a regular guest on here. Very grateful for that. So thank you, Duncan, for all that you do.
If you don't want to miss a single episode with Alex or any of our other guests, make sure that you're on our free mailing list. Did I mention it was free? Just go to libertyandfinance.com, put in your email address, click submit, make sure you confirm on the confirming email, and you'll get one email in your inbox per day. We don't share your email with anyone else, and you'll get every single interview with Alex and all our other guests. Alex Newman, the contributor at the Epoch Times, founder and contributor at Liberty Sentinel and the New American. Thank you for joining us here on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you, sir.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for January 20th through January 27th, 2025, while supplies last. This week we feature the 1-ounce Canadian Silver Falcon coin at just $2.75 over spot, the lowest price we've had on any sovereign coin in years. We also have 90% constitutional silver or junk silver at just $1.69 over spot per ounce. We also have the 1/10 ounce UK Gold Britannia coin at just $29.99 over melt. And finally, 1-ounce gold Canadian maples are just $59 over spot. Again, one of the lowest prices we've had on gold sovereign coins in years. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.